I would say that the opportunity here is that in solar and at Freedom is bigger than any one person. Renewable energy may be the greatest wealth creation opportunity in any of our lifetimes.
This is the Solar Disruption Theory.
Welcome to another episode of the Solar Disruption Theory podcast. My name is Chad Towner. I am your host. And today with me, we've got Freedom Forever's very own president of sales. His name is Kiley Powell. Kiley, how you doing?
Doing good. Thanks,
Welcome.
Chad.
Welcome to the show. I know you've been at Freedom for like 5 years, so it's only a matter of time before we get you on the show. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Today is pretty special. There's a reason we've got you on at this time because I guess it's tomorrow. Tomorrow's your birthday, isn't it?
It is.
There you go, pal. You can wear that hat the whole time if you'd like, or we can just put it right here. Happy birthday.
Leave it there. Appreciate it.
So you have been in the industry forever. You're going to complete another year around, another trip around the sun, as they say, tomorrow. But you've been you got your start in door-to-door over 20 years ago. When did you first start selling in direct sales?
First summer was the summer of 2001.
Like 23 years ago.
23 or so years ago, yeah. It seems like yesterday. It's been a fun ride.
Was that after you got home from your mission?
Yep.
Okay, and you went on a mission to El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Con los hipotes.
Los guanacos.
Los guanacos. And you went out for your first summer. It was with Apex at the time. That was your first summer?
APEX.
APEX,
Yeah,
which there's a
long time
distinction.
ago.
If you got to be a real OG to know the difference between APX and APEX, but there is a difference. So, man, lots happened. So tell us a little bit about your journey in the direct sales space.
So, yeah, just thinking about how it's kind of a crazy thing to think about 23 years ago, but in 2001, we were recruited by a guy named Leon Jeffs, and he came down to our small community where we all grew up, which is like a coal mining community and a farming community where, he's just like, if I can go get guys like myself that just know how to work and can get out here and at least just stay for the entire summer, we should be able to have a successful summer. And we did. Like, all of us went out without understanding and or believing that anyone needed an alarm system, really, right?
Yeah.
But then we're from a small town, then we go to this like inner city of Chicago and learned that was something that someone needed in a big way really quick, right? Because I think the first night one of our guys had his tires removed and his vehicle was left on blocks in the area, but got started early. Knew very soon thereafter that I was going to remain in sales for my entire career. I think I had and back then I think it was a big deal. I had a $30,000 summer, and thought, what if I could do this full time instead of just the summer months, right? Loved it. Stayed in it, eventually found solar, and have been doing solar ever since.
I know, there are sales reps who were born after 2001 that are out selling right now. A lot of them, actually. Your years in door-to-door are older than probably the average, at least appointment setter.
Thank you. I know. I literally joke around. I'll do incentives when I travel to teams and find the person that was born closest to the date that I started selling solar, and offer them a gift card or something like that.
All right, so you transitioned to solar, and you had a pretty significant role at Solar City. You talk a lot about back at Solar City, sometimes too much, but we hear a lot about what was going on at Solar City, all the things that they did well, you guys did well, the things that you wanted, that you learned from. what was it like at Solar City? Why you transitioned over there in like 2013, 2014? You were one of the early ones that joined, and you were over a lot of different things there. What was that like, and why were they so successful?
Man, that's a loaded question, because I think there's a lot of reasons why we were collectively so successful, and one, it was just I talk about it so much because there's so many things that are so similar that we are doing today that we had at Solar City. Obviously, the first and foremost, we just had like a vision and a why that everyone was focused on. But you'll hear me say often that birds of a feather flock together. I think timing was everything. We had amazing leaders on the direct side that at one point it was not everybody was too keen on the idea. But when 4 or 5 different individuals kind of came together, John Frampton, Cody Bastian, Jared Gillespie, and a handful of other guys, industry veterans, that Court Reynolds, I can't leave him out. He was one of the first ones that jumped in. That it took a lot of these guys that had been working for a long time in the industry to see the opportunity and jump at it. But obviously, it goes without saying that a lot of people flocked there because of the Elon Musk connection. He was the chairman of the board. There was the recent addition of Hayes Barnard. That for a lot of us, that's why a lot of people went there. Honestly, Hayes was a very influential and a very motivational recruiter, one that we had not. We looked up to a lot of the guys that we had worked with up until that point, but Hayes brought an energy and enthusiasm that none of us had really been a part of before.
Yeah.
We had the backing of all of these people, including Elon, and there was the first talk of real equity or options with a big publicly traded company. That was not like some phantom equity type situation.
Right.
It was real, right? And so when we all saw those units in our E-Trade accounts when we first signed up, it was palpable. It was something that we I think we could build upon and we could recruit upon, and we went really fast and big, and a lot of people joined. But I decided early on that I wanted to work on the corporate side of the business, and so I went and we oversaw the training and the onboarding of a lot of the direct sales reps that came through the program, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think over the years, one of the things you brought to Freedom from a value standpoint is like you have this crazy network, because going back as far with your early days in the early 2000s, the time you spent at Solar City, it's like everybody. You go to any of these solar conventions or any of these events, and it's like everybody knows Kiley, and you've kind of built this rapport with everybody. It's been said, like, you don't have any enemies. I don't think there's any enemies. So I would love to hear your response to, like, why is that the case? Because I think that is very, very rare. If you've been in the door-to-door space for a long enough period of time, you're gonna have some enemies. You're gonna have some people who speak negatively about you. I've never come across one. So what is that about? Are you just lucky? First of all, is that true? And why do you think that is?
So that's an interesting question. I haven't been asked before, so I think I'll try to internalize it first and give you the best answer that I can. But and I guess to be upfront, I don't think a lot of people were happy that I wanted to leave and do something completely different and potentially compete with the company that I worked with before. But at the same time, like, it was the right move for me and my family. But I really do believe, and I think my knee-jerk reaction to the question is just how I was raised. My dad is the same way, and I've never really thought about it that way. I don't know anybody who would speak unkindly or wish ill will on my dad, and maybe that's just that is where I learned some of that from, but I try very hard to try to build relationships that actually matter, not for strategic purposes, but for the real intrinsic value in friendships, and loyalty is paramount for me. And so I think that is probably why that has been the case. And I do not believe, I learned early on also from a good friend at Vivint. We both know Jared Young.
Yeah.
I remember him telling me that you never burn bridges, no matter what, because if you stay in this industry long enough, you'll end up working together at some point in some fashion.
Yeah.
And that really sunk in, and I just kept that close to my heart and mind, and make it a point to not burn any bridges.
Yeah, no, but it's hard to do. Like, I certainly have some enemies out there in the solar space and history, and like I try hard, to do the right thing, do what you say. It's really just like do what you say you're going to do, right, to the best of your ability. But no, it's something that I've always admired in you, and your ability to just maintain and manage relationships and never let things get to a point where people would say negative things about you, or it gets awkward if you saw somebody at a restaurant or whatever. So kind of fast forward a little bit, you joined Freedom in 2019, also part of the reason we've got the birthday hat.
Yeah,
You're about to complete your 5th Freedom birthday in September.
It's true.
Why'd you join Freedom, and what's that been like?
It's been probably the most rewarding. Although we did some pretty special things at Solar City, and have met and made a lot of friends and built those relationships along the way. We are at other places we've been focused on a lot of different things. At Freedom, we're focused on one thing, and we are doing, and obviously I'm biased, but a very good job at what we're doing and growing and scaling the largest installer in the country. And I was meeting with a couple of companies when I was deciding whether or not to leave the company that I came from prior to the opportunity here at Freedom. And I think I saw, you and I have talked about it quite a few times. I saw what you saw. I saw a leader in Brett Bushy that was focused on a mission and didn't want to deviate from that mission. And that mission was not short term. It was long term. It was, don't come here unless you're willing to give your all for decades. Right. And that's what I had longed for, is something that was not just a day-to-day job, but something that I could build, something that I could be proud of. And that was probably the number one reason that I wanted to join Freedom, is we were centrally focused on a mission, and that it was something that I believed could change the way that other people viewed the industry, by doing things safely, efficiently, effectively, in kind of the right way, from an install standpoint, and leverage my network to be able to bring them to that same opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that's like in 2019, in September of 2019, Freedom was in a handful of states. Within 2 years, or within 2 years, it was over 30, right? And there were a lot of big teams and companies that had come over, and you were part of all of that, like recruiting and helping manage that. And so, it was funny, like you came over to Freedom. I knew you, obviously. Brett didn't know you. But you started out as an account executive, and you were just kind of helping sales teams and dealers. And within a short period of time, you kind of just climbed the ranks, and you were promoted to VP. And then shortly thereafter, president of sales. So now that you're managing kind of massive sales network, right? Primarily, 3 large dealers, gigantic sized dealers, and then a handful of small ones that have been with us and loyal for a long time that we love and appreciate. But managing this giant sales organization, how do you do that? How do you keep a handle on, thousands and thousands and thousands of sales reps?
This one's a little bit easier for me to answer because our partners that we have and that we've surrounded ourselves with make it easy, in my opinion. Like there are days that get hard, and there's never a dull moment, to
Right.
put it lightly.
Yeah.
in our space, but you surround yourself with the best leaders. It's not a job. It's really like more fun than it is day-to-day tasks. And so we have some of the best leaders that a lot of us have worked with for a long time. And so those relationships, those key relationships matter. And it's we don't have to spend time getting to know each other, building that before we execute on the business plan and model. And that's one facet of the I guess the question that helps just make it not a day-to-day thing and a mundane, repetitive clock in, clock out kind of a thing for me. I get to come to work every day. I look forward to our calls, even though sometimes they are filled with, like I said before, a lot of drama and sometimes some pretty heavy stuff that we have to deal with. But we also get to talk and work with the Josh Sliders and the Tyler Bastions and the Riley Travelers of our network, and I could go on, and I hate to leave even one single name out, but we're fortunate. I'm fortunate to be able to have, call it luck. A lot of people don't believe in luck. You create your own luck, and maybe there is some of that, but I believe by just hard work and relationship building, like, things kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I talked to Riley Traveler today for the first time in several weeks.
Yeah.
Right. They're doing a quarter of our volume, and just checked in, but it's been weeks, and they're just out there just doing their thing. They're managing their business and building and growing, and no drama. Like it is amazing when you have partners that just know how to run their business, and they know what they want and they need, and they're going out and executing. And then when they do have needs or asks, it's like not emotional. They just, it is so refreshing, because I think in this industry it's so much, there's this culture of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I can't stand that. Like for me, the squeakier you are, I'm not gonna grease the wheel, I'm gonna get a new wheel, right? That's just how I typically see it. And we are so lucky to have these incredible, like, not just best leaders in door-to-door or best leaders in solar, like best business leaders I've ever been around. Any one of these guys could have could be a motivational speaker and could have some big Tony Robbins type following. So it is incredible. We are very, very lucky. With the explosive growth has come, a lot of this. As you grow as a business, there's always these growing pains, right? And you get into new markets, and you have these new challenges. As a president of sales, you have to manage a lot of the sales and leaders and the things like you talked about. But also, we work for an ops company. We don't have direct sales teams or W-2 at Freedom. We just do the installs. And so you also are kind of like interceding and in the middle between all of our sales partners and the ops people to try and make sure that we're kind of on the same page. What is that dynamic like, and what kind of role have you seen yourself play, or like what is that like to because I think in solar, there's no other like pest control or alarms. Sales drives everything, and then ops just kind of follows along, and it's easy. Like you can spray the pest control, you spray the bug spray like the same day. Go follow behind the sales teams, and you'll be spraying houses all day long. Solar, there is so much intricacy and nuance that has to happen after the sale is made. How do you navigate that?
Well, you hear it said all the time, and in many of our conversations, we talk about like it's at the end of the day, it's still construction, right? When it comes to solar, and I actually have a construction background. I worked in construction through high school and a little bit post mission, and I think having that understanding of some of the complexities that it takes to put a project together and to execute from like raw materials to a fully tiled shower, or raw piece of wood to a cabinet, going on a wall in a house. There's really no difference between that and solar, and I think my role has been to help the sales organizations and leaders kind of bridge that gap and understand, that although I've also knocked doors and spent a lot of time in their shoes at the kitchen table and, closing deals, I also know in the back of my head what A to Z looks like in the flow of a system from sold to install, right? And again, like same response really with our sales dealers and owners of those companies, that they make it easy because they're so amazing at what they do. Our ops are second to none. Our ops, meaning HQ ops, field ops, are the best in the business. They've done this at scale, most of them, and they aren't reinventing the wheel, right? They're not trying to figure this out as they go. They've done it at the highest level and achieved market share actually that we haven't yet as an organization. So they know what they're doing, and I confidently can take that to the sales field and make sure that they understand, and hopefully they can kind of piggyback off of my knowledge base of that and what they are doing to be able to, to build the trust and build the faith in the sales teams that we're going to get things taken care of and glass on roof, as they say. And it's not an ezy thing that our ops teams are doing. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult business to operate. And I mentioned before, safely. Those guys are putting their lives at risk while they're on the roofs putting panels up. When I think a lot of sales teams don't think about those type of things sometimes. It's just like, hey, I got the signature, I'm done.
Right.
And there's actually somebody that has to get up on a roof in some cases and shovel snow to be able to put those panels on the roof so that the customer can ultimately start saving money. And I think just understanding that really helps and has helped me be able to help other people, sales organizations and individuals, just understand the process, not only from the sales side, from the operations side as well.
Yeah, you mentioned your background in construction, building cabinets or building a shower, but what we're trying to do is to do that across the entire country, and all these different permit offices and AHJs and HOAs and utilities and states and all these different regulatory bodies. It is kind of crazy to think that like this is custom construction across the U.S. and we're trying to build this machine that is smart enough to be able to adapt and be custom enough to every single individual home, but that we can apply to potentially 100 million homes, right? And like that is I think the undertaking that I just don't think anybody else is really trying to achieve. I think a lot of other companies, their goal is to just make as much money now while they can, and they want to, they think it's like a gold rush, right? And so like, make money with solar as long as you can and charge the customer as high as you can. And for the installers, they charge the highest red lines they can. And, I think there's just this short-term mentality. What is it about freedom that allows us to think a lot more long term?
I think it goes again back to your question about why I came here. Like it's what Brett has challenged us all to think bigger, to think, to challenge our stretch our thought process, right? Like more so than we ever have before. And that's like from the ground up, right? That we all need to think about this a bigger way instead of that short term, one job here, one job there. Like I remember him saying, like, we were doing a couple hundred installs a month, right? And he's like, sat us down and he challenged us to start thinking about what 5,000 installs a month looks like, and then what 10,000 installs or what 50,000 installs a month might look like. And I remember thinking, like, and I tell people this, I'm like, all right, maybe
Sounds
did I make
crazy.
It's a little bit out there, but then, year after year, we start achieving these milestones, and that it is all just based on scale. And if you focus and are disciplined, I think that's one of the most important things that we are. If someone was to ask me, like, what makes Freedom special, is we are incredibly disciplined. We don't deviate from the business model or the financial model. It hasn't changed since before we were here. Right. So I think if you focus on that and you start, one of my favorite books is Start With Why, right? Like, start with the end in mind, and you can achieve that scale instead of just focusing on, the short term or the onesie twosies, and think of it at a much grander scale.
Yeah. No, I think it's hard to kind of think that big and that far when you've got like today's type of problems, right? And so it really does take a long-term lens. And I don't know if we said it, but huge shout out to all of our ops leaders, Brian Egglesare, Danny Rubin, best in the business.
Those
all their
are the
directors.
names I was referring to.
I know, it's
lucky
amazing
to work with them.
Yeah. All right. So switching gears, going into the kind of the future as we try and scale, one of the big things right now is and we've been talking about this, we've been calling this out for literally years on this podcast, but like finally everybody else is starting to recognize and use the term regulation and compliance, right? And it's like finally starting to pick up steam. We're super excited about the recheck because we think that it will give us a platform for everybody to kind of have visibility into which sales reps are selling clean and compliant and doing a good job taking care of their customers and which are not. And we keep the bad sales reps or the bad sales practices out of Freedom to make sure that we protect what we have, which is this culture of compliance. But it does seem like kind of that is the next obstacle or the next shift in solar is like this regulation that is coming. And we've been saying forever on this call, if we don't regulate ourselves, then someone else will. And so we've seen other states have, Nevada has required everybody to be W-2. Washington now requires everybody to be W-2. And we've seen so many people pull out of those markets. And other states are getting rid of net metering and they're shifting to this other export rate plan or net billing tariff plan. And as this continues to evolve and change, where does Freedom sit in all of that? Like, what does the future look like for Freedom as this entire market continues to shift?
Well, we are, as a market leader, we like with great power comes great responsibility. I don't like quoting Marvel movies all the time, but
I think that came before they were Marvel. I guess it was Marvel, but before Disney bought Marvel.
Okay, right. But really, like as a leader, it's something that we have to be. It's number one in my opinion. Like it starts with training, right? Which we're focusing a lot on our modules and our training modules and our onboarding. That how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So we want to make sure that our sales reps, that representatives as authorized dealers of Freedom Forever are doing things the right way, like from the very, very beginning, that they are completely understanding that compliance is paramount, and that you should be selling, your customer the same way you would your own family member. I think a lot of people, that's something that I always did. I always kept in the back of my mind that would you be doing this thing, and offering this same service and opportunity to your mom or dad or your grandma, right? And I think a lot of people get away from that and start just seeing dollar signs instead of opportunity and longevity. That the true wealth comes in longevity in this industry. You can make a lot of money in the short term, but if you want wealth creation and opportunity essentially for not just yourself but your own family, if we protect the industry, it'll be there for my son and or daughters to work in a decade or 2 decades from now if we protect it.
Yeah, we've always kind of had that mindset, and I'm excited that this is now finally the topic of conversation. Unfortunately, there are far too many companies. We see a lot of the bankruptcies going on, and a lot of them are happening, and I don't feel bad. Like some of them I do feel bad. There's good companies that are struggling right now, but a lot of them are like, they deserve to go out of business, and I wish they would have never. They're giving us a bad name, right? And so, absolutely looking forward to this next iteration and a more clean and compliant and transparency. Like that's the big thing. Like customers still don't fully understand how solar is priced, how their power bill is broken down. And, we teach our sales guys, like, you're not selling solar. You're explaining and educating a customer how their current power system works, how it would work with solar. Once you go through the whole explanation, like it sells itself. It's a no-brainer. And then what's the question every time you get through? If you do a good job and you explain it all accurately to the customer, the question they always ask is, why hasn't everybody done this, right? And the answer is, well, they just don't know yet. But like that is where the value is in the sales reps, and especially as these new structures and rate structures and net billing plans start coming out, and they're getting more and more complex. So like it's going to be more and more difficult for a customer to navigate this without a sales rep. So that's the value of a sales rep, and they deserve to get paid for doing that. Just like a real estate agent when they sell a home, right? But you need to accurately walk them through the entire process, and I think that's where the future is. And we really try hard to make sure that customers are aware of everything that they're getting and that there is truly value there. But the only way to do that in a lot of markets is to have the lowest cost possible to install and the lowest price for the customer. That can only come from scale, right? And that's one of the things I've seen you help Freedom do, is help us really scale our sales volume and sales business. So what would you say to a up and coming sales rep, sales leader who wants to, really take the direct sales and solar business seriously? What would your counsel be to them?
I would say that the opportunity here is in solar and at Freedom is bigger than any one person. Renewable energy may be the greatest wealth creation opportunity in any of our lifetimes. You need to take care of it, right? Like I think back in high school, I think my buddies and I watched Tommy Boy maybe hundreds of times.
Yeah.
But it's like the muffin, right? You need to take care of it, and don't squash it. Don't turn it into crumbs, and that's the opportunity that's in front of us. And so I would say, do things the right way. I would say, educate yourself first. Do the training. Take the time if there are too many people, I think, in the industry that I think gone are the days when you could sign up for, to sell solar and be selling solar, the next day. I think that with that regulation and some of those things that are necessary in the industry, it's going to be that from here on, right, that you need to understand so that you can be understood. And we owe it to the customers to be able to answer all of their questions, not just some of their questions, and just get a signature. We need them to understand exactly how the system is going to perform and what it entails and what their offset might be, and the list goes on and on and on, right? And what a battery is going to do, where batteries are becoming, mainstream and a part of almost every system in some states, and what those loads will cover and what they won't cover, and
Right.
and so that education is paramount to be able to. This is a relationship-based sale. We have, at least I have previously sold like a very transactional sales in you mentioned the pest control or an alarm or a smart home that you can get in and get out and never really talk to the customer again. Why would you not want to talk to a customer again in this space? You want to help them and their neighbors and their friends and their entire network, partake in this amazing opportunity to go solar and ultimately change the way that they produce and use power in their own home.
Yeah, no, it's far too often you see sales reps where it's like, hey, just spend a little bit more time investing in yourself, investing in your own understanding and knowledge of the business, right? And I don't think sales reps need to become electricians by any means, but yeah, I totally agree with you. It seems like I think part of it is they look at sales as, I certainly did, right? Like I looked at it as it's what put me through college. I sold during the summers. You went to college, you sold during the summers, right? At some point, I realized, wow, this is what I want to do long term. But before that, I was just kind of like, clocking in, getting my sales, and I was done. If you really want to succeed, and you need to take it seriously, you need to look at this with more of a long-term lens and realize like this can take care of you and your family for the rest of your life if you do a good job and if you really take this seriously and invest in understanding everything that you can about how this works, right? And so yeah, I totally agree with you. And the last question I wanted to ask you is, with Give Freedom, I know you've been part of a lot of these charity events and these trips and other things. Give Freedom is an initiative that we recently launched in partnership with Give Power. You mentioned Hayes Barnard earlier, right? He started Give Power. He's now the CEO of Good Leap, but also has this charity organization, which is amazing. Like they're bringing water to 1 million people a day, across the world, that's clean water where they previously didn't have clean water. They've these solar, but everything is solar powered, which is what I love. So like,
so cool.
They're doing these, solar systems on hospitals and schools. And when I talked to the leaders over at Give Power when we first started to, envision this thing, I was like, you can't be serious. How is that? It's not a hospital if they don't have power. And they were like, no, Chad, there are hospitals where not only do they not have power, but you have to bring your own clean water for your IV. Like I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I can't wait to go on one of these Give Power treks this winter. You've been on some of these other charity trips before. This is kind of a way to give back. How do you feel about this whole initiative?
It ultimately, I think, was, if anything was missing at Freedom, this was it. The opportunity to give back. I think we've been so focused on we're so mission oriented, and we're focusing on accelerating the adoption of solar, residential solar in the U.S. that we've kind of been one track minded that way. But in order to be truly successful, is at least in an organization, I believe you need to have the opportunity to give back. And as referring back to Solar City that we discussed a little bit, one of the most unfortunate things that we didn't get to see all the way through was, and that we were most excited about, most of the employees at Solar City, was the Give Power organization that was founded while we were all there and that we were going to participate in. And when everything kind of was being dismantled, that we had all built over there, that was the one thing that I personally was the most it was the saddest about it. I didn't get to participate in what that meant and what that was going to bring to the individuals and what it was built for. So, here and referring back to the relationships, it's what kind of goes around comes around, and it's amazing because ultimately I reported up to and through Michelle McGee at Solar City. She is now I believe the president of Give Power, and Aparna, that is the VP of the corporate relationships, and who's a very dear friend of mine, and being able to work with them now and in a new light, a new capacity with Give Freedom and Give Power is something it brings a new level of excitement, to the job. As much as I love my job and I love the industry, being able to give back throughout at each organization that I've been with throughout the years, there was always a give back program. Yeah. And it made it all worth it at the end of the day, to be able to, take coats and school supplies and Christmas gifts to kids, that were less fortunate or didn't have those things, or go on treks and clean up a country, there's been so many, build an orphanage in Mexico, just to name a few. It really does bring the heart into what we all do every day, right? So I'm so excited about the future of the partnership that we have within Give Freedom and Give Power, and the opportunity that we legitimately have. We get to save people money, which I believe changes lives in solar, right? They save some money. I remember that my second cell in Camarillo, California, was going to save on average about $70 or so a month. And I still receive a birthday card to this day from that customer 11 years ago. And they thank me for being able to save them money, because that $70 a month means an extra trip a year for he and his wife to be able to enjoy, right? And so that's very special. But to be able to give back to the less fortunate, or people in the developing world, is something that I hold near and dear to my heart. You mentioned I served a mission for my church in El Salvador. That mission was just a service mission, to be able to give back. We did everything on top of proselyting. We built houses, and we carried water, and we did all of the things to try to help them out. And it was so rewarding, and it changed my life more than it did them. And I'm looking forward to all of our organizations that get to participate. All of our employees and all of our sales dealers that are that are encouraged to participate and Give Freedom, so that they can ultimately give back. But the reward is that they will be changed more than anyone else, throughout the process, by ultimately serving and elevating other people.
Yeah, one of the things I heard one of the leaders of one of our dealers said is, like, make sure you give. You're going to love who you become as a result, right?
That's cool.
And so, yeah, it's not just about helping others. The indirect benefit is that, you start to realize, like, man, this is, you feel so much better. It gives you purpose. So, yeah, very, very excited about Give Freedom, Give Power. For those of you sales reps who are selling with Freedom, make sure you make a contribution. You will not regret it. You'll feel much better walking out of that home that you committed a percentage of your commissions to a greater cause. All right. Well, thank you, Kiley. That about does it. Thank you so much for all you've done for Freedom, and let's just continue to crush it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right. We will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening.